Hello, everyone, and welcome to this YouTube episode. We have a phenomenal episode this week. I'm really excited about our guest today. We have a future applicant to radiology. His name is Hammad. He's really excited about applying to diagnostic radiology, and we're going to be talking about signal preferencing. And actually, it's going to be the reverse. Usually, I'm the one that's interviewing somebody, but actually, Hammad is going to be interviewing me today on signal preferences and things like that. So, without Hammad, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for taking the time out to have this talk, sir. I'm very grateful, and all of my colleagues who are really expecting, your perfect answers for these questions. It's going to be really, really helpful. So thank you so much and for taking the time out to do this.
No worries. Thank you so much. Really excited to do this, and I'll try to be as honest as I possibly can. So, without further ado, Hammad, go ahead and ask away.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. So the first question, very straightforward. So what is signaling and what is its significance in your opinion?
Yeah, sure. So I want to start by just saying that, my answers do not reflect, the APDR or NRMP viewpoints. These are my own opinions about signaling. And, signaling, quite frankly, is a new entity. This is starting this year. And signaling is really an opportunity for applicants to tell programs that they're interested in them. Right. And it's really a two-way street and let me step back a little bit actually and talk about the history of this, because I think that's important. So, we as PDs, we've been getting tons and tons of applications every year. Like it's been rising. Like this, just at University of Maryland, we got over 1,000 applicants for diagnostic radiology. That's a record. We've never hit more than 1,000 in 1 year. And I think over application has been a major problem in all specialties. So in an attempt to decrease over applications, the NRMP is implementing something called signaling, which is an opportunity for applicants to tell certain programs that they're really interested in them. It could be because of geography, it could be because they just really like them. There's many reasons for it, and it actually there are benefits for the applicant. One is it alerts the program that the applicant is actually very interested in the program. From a program standpoint, from a PD like myself, it is helpful to us because then we really know, hey, this person is actually interested. We get thousands of applicants, every year and, every term, and we don't know sometimes if someone is interested. So for example, at University of Maryland, there may be a stellar applicant from California who's applying to the program, but I'm not sure how interested that person is coming to Baltimore, because everything they've done, college, med school, has all been in California. They live in California. They've never ventured outside of the West Coast. And I'm wondering to myself, well, is this person really going to want to come to Baltimore? Should I waste an interview on this person when I could interview another stellar candidate on the East Coast, right? So oftentimes what we've done in those situations, we've asked them to provide, one or two paragraphs on why you want to come to Maryland. But now that they're signaling, we may know without having to ask that question, provide one or two paragraphs. We may know, oh, wow, well, this person is from the West Coast, but they signaled me saying that they really want to come here, right? So Diagnostic Radiology, Interventional Radiology has now come up with a platform where you can signal up to 6 programs, right? And that includes, even if you're applying for DR, NIR, 6 total, no matter what it is. And the NRMP has asked that you not signal your own home program. And if you've done an away rotation, you also not signal that away rotation because they already know of you. That's what the NRMP has said this year. I don't know how that's going to work out because this is the first year. Things may change as things evolve in future years.
Wow, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of the fact that if you've done an away rotation or your own homeschool program, you can signal them. That's great. That's great to hear. All right. So next question, sir. How will it affect interviewing and how will it benefit the candidate if he has signaled a preference to a program?
I think it'll dramatically affect interviewing because it's an opportunity for us to understand who really wants an interview, right? Because again, taking that example from California, if that person who's a stellar applicant who I really want to interview has signaled me, then I'm more likely to offer that person an interview, right? So, that signaling can be a very powerful tool for an applicant to get and to secure an interview. And in that way, it can help the applicant because especially if there are a key number of programs that you really want to hear from, that you may not necessarily think that the PD will be responsive to you, that signaling will really allow you to be known, or that signal will alert the program director to who you are, and it'll increase your visibility to that program director. So I think it can be a game changer to some extent in terms of helping people secure interviews.
Right. That's great. Thank you, sir. So one question, since like myself and many other of my colleagues who are international medical graduates, who are, some of them are coming to the United States for the first time, who have done rotations, how can they benefit from signaling? Would it be beneficial for them to signal the programs where they've done rotations, or the fact that they have geographical ties? Or this is a two-part question, like how can IMGs benefit from this? And secondly, the signaling, is it important for those who have geographical ties, say their family is there, their spouse is there, or they are in the area, like if they moved, they are living in the area and they feel like they're more higher chances to match in the East Coast or West Coast?
Yeah, I think signaling is going to be important irrespective of whether you're an IMG or not. So I think it's going to layer the playing field, and it should be used by everyone, including IMGs and non-IMGs. You know what I mean? So I think that because it's your opportunity to really tell a program that you're interested in them. So yes, IMG should absolutely use them. Take advantage of all the 6 that you have. Choose those carefully, the 6 that you really want to hear from, the 6 that you feel that you have a chance in going to. Now, in terms of geography, yes, I mean, that's the main thing, is geography, right? So, especially in a place that, or in a location that you really want to go to, you should signal those places, right? Because especially if you know that you want to be in East Coast programs, you should be signaling East Coast programs. Pick the 6 that you really want to hear from, and you should apply to those. Now, your other question about, doing an away, that's tricky, because my sense would be to signal even the away programs, but the NRMP has said not to do that. Now, I don't know how that's going to be implemented. I don't know if you're still allowed to do it or not. Like, I don't know if there will be like a, I don't see how the NRMP would know whether or not you did an away rotation somewhere, right? So, and if
Right.
you didn't signal an away rotation then the PD may wonder, well, he did an away with us and he didn't signal us. I think it's a little tricky. It's a little blurry. I think my sense is that if you did an away at place X and you really want to go there,
Yeah, just signal them.
I would just do it. You know what I mean? And that's my opinion. That may not be supported by the NRMP. That may not be supported by the APDR, and that
Right.
may evolve next year, right? I mean, things may change next year because this is the first year we're doing it. But my sense is you don't want to lose out, especially in a place that you feel that you really will have a good chance. Because when you do it away, you increase your chances substantially in getting an interview and maybe even matching into that program, right? So you certainly don't want to rub it the wrong way and not signal them. But the NRP has said not to waste your signal, because I guess it's just understood if you do. I think the way the NRP is thinking about it is, Hammad, is that if you've done it away, it's understood to the program that you're already interested in them, right? So why don't you use your 6 signals elsewhere to show other places that you want to go there? And that's valid. That's 100% valid, right? So I think it just depends on how comfortable you are, in assessing, the 6 signals that you want to use.
Right. Sounds great. That's really great. Thank you so much. So this is something that was a really important point highlighted by one of my colleagues. So like you said, you received 1,000 applications this year for just the University of Maryland. And you have to screen those based on academic proficiency, letters of recommendation, and other ties. So one of my colleagues asked me, if a candidate matches your academic credentials, say, for example, great scores, great letters, and has great recommendation letters, and at the same time there's someone else who has similar stats, because all candidates applying are really great candidates, but one of them signaled, the other did not, will that help them narrow it down, like, hey, we have these 2 great candidates, one of them signaled us, one of them did not? How would that be beneficial to that candidate who signaled?
Yeah, I believe it would. I mean, the bottom line is, we of course at University of Maryland do a holistic review of candidates, right? We look at everything you just said. We look at the personal statement, the scores, the CV, the dean's letter, everything, right? We consider everything, and we really try to look at the big picture, and we look at the diversity of the candidates to see, who they are, how they are, whether they'll be a good fit at the University of Maryland, and will they'll adopt to the culture that we have. Now, of course, we may be interested in interviewing both of them, but certainly if we're already interested in them based on their credentials, as you stated out in your question, and they've signaled us, then we know that, hey, listen, okay, they only have 6 signals. They've chosen, I'm thrilled that I'm one of the 6 that they've done. Absolutely. I would love to, if space permits, we would absolutely love to interview that candidate, right? Because that also shows that, they had a choice to signal hundreds of programs, but I was one of the six that they decided, right? So that does carry weight. That absolutely carries weight that, it's one of the six that you decided, it makes us feel special to some extent, right? And especially if you've already met the criteria that we have for our applicants, I think it substantially increases your chance of being one of the, people that we decide to interview going on to, through the match.
That's great. That's really great to hear. So next, sir, I think actually I'll come back to this later. So if we do not indicate a geographical preference because we want to keep our options open, will that hurt someone who is, for example, interested in programs on the opposite coast? I think that's like exactly what you said. Like, say someone is applying from California to East Coast to the program because he really likes them, but he hasn't signaled them, or he's applying to programs which are completely outside of his geographical zone. How can he not signal them, or signal them to indicate that I'm from the West Coast but I'm applying to the East Coast, and I'm signaling because I have a preference? So will that make the program directors or the committee know that, okay, this person is not in our zone, but he is signaling, and even though he is far away, that means he's interested in us?
Yeah. So I think, it's an interesting question because you're kind of asking it as a paradox. You know what I mean? Like, you're saying that, they're open, they want to be open, and I think that's fine. I think it's great to be open and keep your options open, but then you're also saying, they have an interest in going to a certain geographic area. So I think the bottom line is, you want to be wise and you want to be careful, right? So yes, it's okay to be open, right? But if you want to go somewhere, it should be known, right? I mean, you have to be your own advocate, right? So, and what that means is that, let's say you're in the West Coast and there's a couple of programs on the East Coast that you really want to hear from, right? You should tell them in some way, shape, or form. Whether that means signaling, right?
Yeah.
Signaling is a new powerful way to do that. Or even, let's say you've used your signals, that's not the end of the world. You can always write to them, right? Like, you can, write them an email saying, hey, listen, dear Dr. Awan, I am extremely interested in the University of Maryland because of X, Y, and Z, right? And
Right.
this is why I want to do it. Now we may wonder, well, why didn't you signal me? You had six opportunities, and obviously that means that I wasn't your top six. But with that said, it's still better than nothing, right? It's still better than you not communicating with them at all. So my advice would be just to have open doors of communication, keep
Right.
them open, keep them honest, and use your signals wisely. Use them. Pick the six places that you really want to hear from, right? And use them, right? I think it's a golden opportunity for you to really strike your interest and let your interest be known to programs.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should take advantage of it.
Yeah, you've highlighted a very important point. Always be very honest and very open with your communication. I think that's really, really important. So, yeah, like you said, sir, if you're applying for DR and IR, make your preference signals. So some candidates were concerned if they're applying both DR, IR, and some are even applying to a outside specialty outside of radiology, as so for their own reasons. Would the signal would if they use their dual signaling for both radiology and signaling for the medicine programs in the same hospital, would that sort of raise some questions, or would that be something that is not ideal?
It's possible. I don't have a great answer for that question. You're allowed six signals for DRIR, and then you're allowed however many signals internal medicine has. I don't know the exact number, but with that said, it depends how communicative, let's say in your example of radiology and internal medicine, are within that same hospital. It may very well be that no one finds out about it, right? Like, the DRPD and the IMPD are not communicating with each other, and you're good, right? But with that said, there are other programs, especially smaller programs, where people are more fluent in the way they're talking to each other, and PDs are discussing candidates, and it may come up that, oh, so and so, interviewed with us, and then it may be well known that you're applying to both programs, and whether or not, listen, this happens all the time. People have backups.
Yeah.
We understand as PDs that people have backups, so I don't think it's something to frown upon. But with that said, you have to do what you got to do. You have to work in your best interest, right? If you feel that you want to signal and you really like University of Buffalo or something, both the medicine and the radiology program, then you should signal both of them. It's as simple as that. You want to get the best opportunity. Don't think about, what if or how is it going to be perceived. Do what's best for you. If they decide to talk, that's fine. And if they ask you about it, you should be 100% honest about it, right? You should have no regrets about what you're doing because you're acting in your best interest. And I
Right.
think the PDs know that as well. So as long as you're honest and as long as you're true to yourself,
Mm.
I think things will find a way to work out in the end.
That's great. That's really great, sir. I think in a follow-up to this, like I'm pretty sure so I've noticed that a lot of the programs, the program director of the radiology program is also somewhat on the committee for the interventional radiology program as well. So if you're applying to both the radiology and the interventional radiology program, and you signaled one of the two, or you've used both of your signals to that, how can candidates avoid that discrepancy? Would it be better to not apply to one program in that department, or signal only one, or how can you guide about this?
So I think Hamad it's well known. Obviously, if you're applying to DR or DR plus IR, we know about it.
Yeah.
It's very transparent to us. Like we know, like I know the candidates that are applying to just diagnostic radiology, just IR, and both. It's obvious to us in the ERAS application. So of course, the signaling is now new. So the way it's going to be interpreted, the way it's going to be viewed, is going to be different for different program directors. The way I view it may be different than the way the University of Cincinnati PD views it, the way the University of Alabama, PD views it. But with that said, you're allowed up to 6. And, if you want to use one for DR and one for IR, both at the same institution, then that's fine. That shows that you really value the institution, right? I mean, the fact that you're using 2 out of your 6 at the same institution must mean you really love that institution. And that's fine. I mean, that'll show the PD something. That'll show that, oh, wow, this person, really likes us or really wants to hear from us, really wants to get interviewed. And I think that does carry weight. But with that said, that doesn't mean that you need to do that. If you really like a DR, if you really like IR and you're signaling the DR program at that institution, then that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, right? Like, because you obviously like IR more, but yet you're signaling DR. So you want to be consistent. You want to be consistent with your own values and what you want to get out of the match. So I think just being truthful to yourself and truthful to your own interests is going to be very important when you do the signal preferences.
That's great. Really, that's great to hear. Thank you, sir. I think just follow up 2 more questions. So in terms of programs, is signaling going to hold equal or more importance for community programs versus university programs?
I think it's the same. I think it's not. I don't think there's a discrepancy between university or community programs. I think signaling is just important in general to show your interest. I don't think there's a stratification between elite programs, university programs, community, hybrid programs. I don't like that distinction. Really, it's a way, and it should be thought of as a way to show your interest and a way for PDs to understand your interest in a program. And then that's the bottom line.
Right. That's great. That's great to hear. And I think this is going to wrap up the final question, sir. So is signaling going to help a candidate secure an interview? And then when it comes down to the time of ranking, will it be beneficial, or is signaling going to help ultimately? Like if a candidate has excellent credentials and they were going to be offered an interview regardless, but amongst the masses, if you have to choose someone when it comes to the time of ranking, if someone had signaled a program and they had great interview and everything, would that make them stand out when it came to the time of ranking, or is it signaling limited to just interviews and then everything else is an even field for all the candidates?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Ahmad. I think honestly, it comes down to different programs will value the signaling differently. And my answer isn't really going to reflect a national answer for that question. But I think in general, I think if you were to ask most program directors this, they would say that the signaling is more important, more influential and impactful for the interview, for deciding who gets an interview. Because then honestly, like once we decide, let's say 1,000 people are applying and we interview 100 people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, 30 of them have signaled us. Okay, so we've invited 100 people. Once you come for the interview, you're more or less on the same playing field, right? Then it depends, okay, well, how did this person do on the interview? How did they interact with the residents? How did they interact with the attendings? How good of a match is this person here, right? Obviously your school record and your other things do play a role. Maybe signaling will play a little role, but I think the power of the signaling is more pronounced in the interview versus the actual ranking of the candidate. And again, I think that's different in every institution, but I think what I just said probably represents the majority opinion.
All right, that's really great. Now, in your honest personal opinion, sir, what is the final piece of advice you would give to all the candidates who are applying again, and along with so many of my colleagues who are applying for the second time as interns? What's the main piece of advice you can suggest and recommend to make this year the most beneficial year?
Signal, do your part, reach out to mentors, be true to yourself, don't lose sight of your dreams. You can do it. It just takes time, perseverance, patience, talking to a lot of people, networking. All these things are very important. So, the more you can do, the more you can be visible, the more you can put yourself out there. Hopefully, there will be a lot of success and a lot of prayers, of course,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
to the one above.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time out, sir. We really appreciate it. And I'm really glad to have this opportunity to have recorded this lecture with you. I hope all my colleagues and all my future radiology residents benefit from this, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hammad, for your time. Appreciate it. An honor to do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. My honor.